Hey there, graphic designers. Today we're going to take a look at our gradient tool in Illustrator. I'm starting off with this donut hole shape right here. I'm going to take and get rid of that stroke, and I'm going to just add a fill to it so that this way you can see, we got that center hole cut out right there. And what we're going to do is add a gradient to it. So I got my gradient palette up right here. If I click on this guy, it'll add that default black to white gradient. And now we could see our slider down below over here. So the way that we change the colors are the little dots that are underneath. If I double click on one, we can take and go to our swatches and choose a different color. If we want to be more precise, we go back to our palette and we come in here and just sort of click and drag and find the exact color that we want. And then to change the other one, same thing, we double click. Start off with the swatch if you want to, or go to the palette and then be more specific with the exact color that you're sort of looking for. We can add more colors to this by clicking underneath that gradient slider, and then we can take and, again, by double clicking, choose the color that we want, and you could add as many as you want, changing all the different colors. If there's one that you don't want and you've added too many, if you click and drag downward, we can get rid of them. We can take and move the location of these. So I can throw that orange in the middle and have that blue on the outside if I wanted to. We have the diamonds that are at the top, which control how much of the color is being constrained. So if I bring these inward, that orange is going to be a little bit more constrained. We're going to see more of the two outer colors. And if I slide them back out, we get that more gradual change happening again. We can take and change this to a radial gradient by clicking on that radial gradient option. There is also an option for freeform, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. I'm going to go back to that linear gradient. We have the option of changing the angle right here, so we can specify if we want a 90 or a 45 or what angle we want it at. But the more important thing is this edit gradient button. That will actually pull up your gradient tool over here on the left, and all of those options actually show up directly on top of the object that we've made. And I could take and do all those same changes with the diamond, with constraining the color a little bit. I can take and, if I double click, come in here and manipulate the color that I'm using. If I click underneath, we get that plus and we can add a color or remove it. So with the gradient tool up, we have all of these different options right here on our object that we're actually drawing. And then we can also click and drag, which will remake the gradient, and it's just like changing the angle here, but we could be more exact with what we're taking and doing. If I draw a short line, we get a really quick change in color, and inversely, if we draw that long one, it's that more gradual change. And whichever direction you drag is the way that the colors are going to take and flow. So we got blue at the top right now, but if I drag the other way, that blue is down at the bottom. If I flip it to radial, we get the same options, sort of where we're drawing from, clicking and dragging. We see all those same options around there for us. And again, I'm going to go back to that linear again. The last thing that we're able to do is change the opacity colors for these. So if I take and double click on this guy, we can take and change the opacity right here. I can set this all the way down to 0 so it fades completely. This guy, I can maybe set down to 60 or 70 so it's got that gradual fade. And then if I redraw this, clicking and dragging, we can see we get that gradual fade into nothing. I could take the diamond, sort of constrain that back upward a little bit, and it gives that gradual fade into nothingness. And again, I could always take that last slider, bring it upward a little bit more, maybe bring that diamond out, and that's going to change the flow of how that gradient's changing and where it's sort of vanishing to nothing. We can also do all of these for a stroke. So I'm going to take and actually slide this off to the side here. I could take a line, come in here with a line. Actually, we'll do a box. We'll use the rectangle. I'm going to throw a stroke on it, give it some width, just so we can see what's going on. And I could take that same gradient by clicking on it and apply it to the actual stroke of the object. And we can see that all the same options are here. If I go to that gradient tool, we're not able to click and drag because it does handle it a little bit differently, but we do have an extra option over here for the stroke. So we could apply it within the stroke, we could apply it along the stroke, and then we could apply it across the stroke. So different options. You have your tools down here where you can still change the colors and whatnot. The last thing that we're able to do is that freeform gradient. So I'm going to take this guy, copy and paste it. I'm going to completely remove the stroke from it, and I'm going to click on the freeform gradient. And that allows me, after it changes the color, to add additional points. So right now, we got this one center point right here. That's why it's got that blue shade throughout. If I double click on it, again, we could come in here and change the colors. Right now it's changing overall everything because we only have one control point. But if I drop another one in here, I could double click on it, make adjustments, and as I continue to add points and change the colors, we can see that that gradient is more of that free form, and it's wherever I'm clicking and dropping, we're getting all these additional colors that are sort of being manipulated. And with each of these, we can control by dragging outward or inward the amount. So if we want one to intrude a little bit more on the other, we could always play with the location and move them around. So it's a very free form where you're placing the gradients and dropping them. We're not stuck with that linear or gradient, linear or radial gradient like we normally would be.